And the three forces in achieving excellence. The first force is about the person's identity, any and everything that has to do with the individual. The second force is about connections. That is your relationships, relationship with yourself and with others. And then the third force has to do with your status. That talks about how you navigate the business world, how you handle your finances, as well as how you look and plan for your future. So it's a holistic approach to leveling up. If you think of it like a dimmer switch, you don't have to get all right. It's not about perfection. It's about switching up your light bit by bit in order for you as a female to show up and say, Mr. Organization, Mr. Company, I have what it takes to step into that role.
Whatever your hand findeth to do, do it with all your heart. Welcome to another inspiring episode of Podcast with SHEILA, the podcast that is spreading positivity around the world by sharing inspiring life experiences. Today's guest, Elizabeth Batalla, is the founder of the Institute for Achievement and Excellence. She helps women quickly level up in 9 life areas so that they can become successful in life. In this episode, we are going to be discussing her life journey as a successful businesswoman and all the services she currently provides for women. Hello, Liz, and welcome to Podcast with SHEILA.
Thank you for having me on board, SHEILA. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a delight to host you today. So, before we set the ball rolling, who is Liz? Where does she come from? Just the basic stuff, so that our audience get to know who our guest is for today.
Of course. My name is Elizabeth, as you said. I'm originally from the Caribbean, Trinidad to be exact, and I lived there. I was born there, and I lived there for most of my life. In my early 30s, I got the opportunity to work in the UK, and I moved to the UK at that time, and I have been here with my career ever since.
Great. I know a lady who is from Trinidad as well, and I know she'll be listening in. Her name is Leela. So Leela, if you're listening, shout out from me. And she's a nice lady. Seriously, she's really
Hi,
lovely.
Leela.
Yeah, I'm sure she's going to get back to me. Hopefully, I'll put the feedback down as well. So, as every successful person has a story, what will yours be?
My success story is about my journey in terms of how I have helped women along the way and helped myself as a process.
Great.
To be honest, SHEILA, I have worked in male-dominated environments for almost all of my career, starting in banking, oil and gas, IT, professional services. And in that space of time, as well as when I lectured at different universities and colleges, I had lots of conversations with different people, women in particular, who wanted to understand how it is I was so successful in the space in which I was working. What did I do differently, and what did I do to make myself successful? And as we spoke, I realized that after a while, the same problems, the same concerns, the same issues kept coming up time and time again. And I felt that I can do so much more by bringing my knowledge to the masses, as opposed to just speaking to these women individually and helping them in an informal way. I wanted to create something to make it more formalized so that I can be out there reaching them in a bigger way.
So I believe that was what made you leave the corporate world to start up something on your own, is it?
Correct. Yes, correct. I've been in the corporate now for more than 35 years, and in 2020 I decided to become an entrepreneur to bring what I have learned over the years with my own knowledge, as well as what I've learned from other successful leaders, to everyone.
Wow. Come to think of it, we shouldn't look at the bad side of it, because 2022 had really been a blessing. It was for all of us like a time to stop, reflect, and then come up with new ideas or reinvent ourselves. And I know we've said a lot of bad things about 2020, but then on the good side, most of us discovered ourselves, and it looks like you're one of such people who decided to break out and do something to help your kind, like to help women. How has the journey been since you left the corporate world into doing your own thing? What has it been like, the challenges, the success stories with it? Share with us some of them.
Of course. So first of all, I do agree with you, SHEILA, that it has been, a blessing as well. It has not been all doom and gloom, because for many of us, myself included, priorities shifted, and I found myself wanting to do something different and contribute to the world in a different way. In terms of my journey and how it has been so far, it has been a challenge. It has been a challenge to from creating all of the materials and consolidating 40 years of experience and knowledge and expertise into condensed programs, upskilling myself, learning new things, having to learn new things very quickly, because for most of you who maybe have become entrepreneurs, it's a different ballgame.
It is.
The learning curve can be steep, and it can be intense.
Yeah.
So the challenge, I've always been up for a challenge, and I've always been one to jump at challenges and overcome it. And this was no different. So it has been a positive journey as well, because I'm starting to see things unfolding. The clients that I'm working with, they are seeing the benefits of what it is I have to offer, and I am seeing that and witnessing it firsthand, the ripple effect it has, not just on their lives, but on lives of others. So it's both a blessing and a challenge at the same time.
What are some of the challenges a woman will have in starting up a business in today's world? In the past, and I believe now, still ongoing, there are a lot of challenges for women entrepreneurs where they don't get support or financial assistance to start up a business. What can you say about that?
When it comes to challenges, SHEILA, it's not just for the entrepreneurs, it's for the women in the corporate environment as well. And there are two aspects to those challenges. One is internal, the person or the woman's own internal dialogue she has with herself, whether it be, and in terms of my experience, it usually centers around things like confidence, things like imposter syndrome, or feeling a state of overwhelm very quickly, because there is just so much to do, and the time is limited, and sometimes the clock and finances are ticking in the background. So there's that feeling of overwhelm. So these are some of the internal challenges. Some of the external challenges, if you're dealing with an organization, you're an employee in an organization, could be lack of sponsorship, or it could be that the processes and procedures that are in place, it doesn't support the woman in terms of maybe flexible hours or maternity leave, etc., over and above, obviously, the basics. When it comes to entrepreneurship, as you rightfully said, SHEILA, there can be limited resources geared towards businesses that promote female empowerment, or just access to different aspects that perhaps the male counterpart would have greater access to, in terms of groups, clubs, etc. So there are both intrinsic and extrinsic challenges.
Well, you've been in the corporate world before breaking out. What advice would you give to somebody who is currently in the corporate world and thinking of breaking out on their own? What advice will you give to them?
That's a really, really good question. Because, what I would say is, it is very rewarding to be an entrepreneur. There's no doubt about it. However, don't just jump without a plan. And this is why many people who begin businesses, when things go wrong, it confuses them, it demotivates them, and they end up back into the corporate environment. Because initially it's a feeling, and they move on that feeling, and that's fine, that's okay. But I always say, have a plan. Now, what do I mean by that? Understand what your minimum budget is in terms of your quality of life, so that while you're building your business, you don't end up in a situation where you turn around and hate the very business that you're building because your quality of life is completely destroyed. whether that be in terms of finances, whether that be in terms of time, etc. Identify what is the minimum you need in order to maintain your level of happiness. Because the worst thing is to do business from a state of frustration and from a state of desperation. So that's one. The second thing is be honest with yourself. And when I say be honest, look at your personal resources, your time, your level of energy, and your level of finances. What can you realistically do to push your business forward? It doesn't make sense to say, I am going to spend 5 hours a day on my business when you know, based on family commitments and other things, you probably can only do 1 hour.
Yeah.
So there's so many things, but what I would say is be very diligent before you jump. Ensure that you set yourself up for success and don't just jump. Have a plan in place.
Yeah. Well, let me throw this in. I think I saw a post today. It says, I asked God for wisdom and God gave me problems to solve. So sometimes you think, and I think I've said it so many times on this platform, that sometimes like we should cherish our problems because they all build us up. And I remember back in the day, so many years back, when I came out of the uni and I didn't find a job and I had to start doing something on my own. But that was so difficult because as a young girl back then, I think I was around 24 years or 23 years then. And people would say those days being an entrepreneur wasn't as common as it is today, especially for a young girl who had just come out of the uni. And people would say, why did you choose to take the difficult road? Because at that time, all my friends were going into the corporate world and they were doing so well. And I was like scraping along, kind of. The only good was I wasn't renting because I was still living with my parents and I'll still get the support. Like when I need to move around and do my business, I had all of those in place for me, but it was quite difficult. And when you look at them, and then a number of times I doubted myself. And when people said, why are you doing it? I would ask myself, is it worth it? Because you look at the energy that has gone in and everything and you don't get much back. You get it? But all that time I had learned the ropes. And it looked like God was preparing, because at that time I didn't have any responsibility. I didn't have children. I wasn't married. I was living with my parents, so I could still eat. I had shelter. I had a car at my disposal. Like, I wasn't spending much. So it wasn't like if I wasn't making much, I wouldn't feel it. You get it? But that was my preparation stage. So I had to learn to do so many things on my own. Do marketing, do graphics, do everything on my own. Now, at the point where I needed those skills to come back to me, I had responsibility and they are paying off. So everything I have done, right from artwork to marketing to everything, I have not had to depend on anybody but myself. So sometimes, just like you said, take your time, reflect, know if the timing is right for you. If you have a lot of everything you said really makes sense, 100%, and I agree with you. Else you would give up too quickly.
Yes. And one thing I would add to that, Sheila, which is the point that you brought up there, you stuck with it. Yeah. The thing is, as an entrepreneur, no one is going to wake you up in the morning and say, okay, this is what you have to get done and this is how resilient you need to be. That has to come from inside, because every day there is going to be a challenge, every single day. And if you don't have that resilience to stick with it, it will deteriorate very quickly, because trust me, as an entrepreneur, anything that can go wrong probably will. There is always the upside. There is the day or days where everything goes swimmingly well, but resilience, patience as well is the key to succeeding in this space as well.
That's so true. Now let's talk about what you do for women. What exactly do you do for women with your organization?
So there's two sides to that. One is I work with the women individually, and then the other aspect is I work with organizations themselves. The whole premise is that we still in this day and age, we still do not have sufficient representation of women in senior leadership teams or in management, in senior management teams. Despite all of the statistics that show how well and how much better businesses can perform, can meet the criteria of their client base, there still is not sufficient representation. Now, that representation comes with something we spoke about earlier, Sheila, which was it has to do with intrinsic aspects to the woman, and it also has to do with extrinsic aspects, meaning what the corporate can bring.
Yeah.
What I offer is something called the 3 Forces in Achieving Excellence framework. Now, what is that? That is a framework that helps women level up very quickly so that they can step into that leadership space. It is also a framework to help organizations understand what they need to do to promote their female talent into those spaces. And the 3 Forces in Achieving Excellence, if I were to break it down very quickly, the first force is about the person's identity, any and everything that has to do with the individual. The second force is about connections. That is your relationship with yourself and with others. And then the third force has to do with your status. That talks about how you navigate the business world, how you handle your finances, as well as how you look and plan for your future. So it's a holistic approach to leveling up. If you think of it like a dimmer switch, you don't have to get all right. It's not about perfection. It's about switching up your light bit by bit in order for you as a female to show up and say, Mr. Organization, Mr. Company, I have what it takes to step into that role. Yeah. What are you doing to ensure that you support me in stepping into that space?
Wow. So how long has it been since you started your business with Achieving Excellence?
It was founded in May 2020, so at the height of everything happening. Yeah. And it has been going from strength to strength ever since, because both females and organizations have witnessed the power of investing in their female talent and women just showing up and tapping into their own innate power and potential.
Wow. Is there anything else you'd like to add, like a way of people reaching out to you and all of that?
The easiest way to reach out to me is via my website, and that is achievementandexcellence.com. The and is spelled out in full, so it's achievementandexcellence.com. There you will find all my social handles. Also there you will find the free assessment. It's an assessment that asks questions across all of the 9 life areas. So it gives you an indication in the form of a spider diagram, your areas of strengths and your areas for improvement. So if you're not sure where to start and you're not sure what you should be looking at where improvement is concerned, that's a good place to start as well. So it's achievementandexcellence.com.
Do you think we can talk about the 9 life areas quickly before we...
Of course.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yes. So in terms of remember we said that the 3 forces in achieving excellence is a framework, yeah? And it's not about perfection. It's about you showing up at your best possible self, using the resources, times and tools that you have. That's it. So each of the forces contain 3 life areas to help with the implementation. So if we look at identity, the 3 life areas I cover there. 1 is your personal brand. The second is your personal style. And the third is your demeanor. Yeah?
Yeah.
Because it's how you show up in the world. Your personal brand, online, offline, your demeanor. What is your business etiquette like?
Yeah.
Yeah? Personal style. I'm not talking in brand here. I'm talking what is your clothes? How you present yourself? How is that describing who you are? The next one, the connections force, the 3 life.
Before we go on the next one with the connection, let's dwell a little bit on the personal style. And I like it so much. Lately, I think I've said it this one a number of times as well, that a lot of us women tend to lose ourselves, like give up on ourselves, especially when we get married, have children, because most of the time we tend to think, we are dressing to get a husband and all of that. Now we have a husband, we think, because we've landed a husband, we don't need to put ourselves together and all, but we forget, even let's aside your working area, we forget that men in general always like things that are appealing. And the moment you lose yourself, you begin to lose them. And it's so in every work environment. Like, the way you present yourself is the way people would respect you or attach, some dignity to you as a person. And women used to now say, oh, I don't have time to dress up. I'm too busy. And my children, I know I have a lot of responsibility. And they tend to say, people who don't have anything doing are those who waste time on dressing up. And I've heard it so many times. And then they tell you, I'm too confident in myself. I don't need to dress anything I put on. But that's so wrong. Like you said, the late queen who just passed, when you talk about hats and a brooch and a good jacket, you can identify her with it. That is her image. You would always see her with a lady's hat, like a nice hat and a brooch. That is her style. And everybody, when you look at all the pictures that are circulating on social media, even those that have been painted, most of them have a reflection of her back. But once you see the back, this is the queen they are talking about. So like you're saying, we should all have an image. And I think that is so crucial, especially in this day and age, where people accept you by what they see. You cannot help it, but they'll only accept you by the way you present yourself. And I think that as women, we have to make a lot of effort, put in a lot of effort to put ourselves together and not let ourselves go and say it's a waste of time. I don't have time. We tend to give ourselves those excuses, which I think don't make sense at all. Because when we dress well, it impacts on our attitude for the day. For me, there is no way I would go out and not look good, even when I'm just, it's a casual day for me. And there's this lady who stands at my children's school at the gate. And one time she said, I watch you all the time and you come in properly put together. I can do that. And I said, because she said, sometimes I don't wake up well, so I can't do that. And I told her, I don't wake up well all the time. You're not always in the mood, but because you make it a conscious effort, you make sure you're always put together. So I like that bit you put there. And you saw me nod my head because I tend to meet a lot of women in my daily life who think that it is a waste of time to make the effort to look good. So I like it when you...
Sheila, what I would say about that, for those who may think that it's a waste of time, and I will be brutally honest here, it doesn't matter what you think, because that is how it is. It's like gravity. Whether you believe in gravity or not, if you jump from somewhere high, you will fall. I have seen time and time again in business where people are not promoted, where in interviews people are not received simply because of how they show up externally. Because whether we like it or not, we are judged externally before someone gets to know us internally. We may or may not be able to change their mind. However, the external counts. And I am not speaking about looking as if you've just walked out of a magazine cover or be beautiful. When I say beautiful, I'm talking textbook wise here. That's not what we're discussing here. It's how you present yourself. And what I would say to women who lack the time, and this is something we all battle with, perhaps consider a uniform. And when I say a uniform in quotes, I don't mean an official uniform. I mean your go-to signature look. If for you going to work, black trousers, black jackets, and all you have to worry about is the color of the top you put inside of that, then fine. If it's a full dress and you just change your jacket, just think and sort of automate the things in your life that you can automate to take away what we call decision fatigue, because it may or may not be who you are, but we're talking here about personal presentation. Yes, so it is important.
It is. Wow, let's get on with it then. Let's get on.
Okay, let's get on with it. Absolutely. So the second life force we're looking at here is connections. And in connections, it's all about relationships. Relationship with yourself and relationships with others. And there I look at physical health, mental health, and emotional health. So as an example, what do I mean when I look at those things? Physical health, one of the big factors with an aging population that women are facing is the onset of menopause and how it affects them in most times a negative way in the organization. Right? And it's understanding what that can be done. And for many women, it's not even an issue of age, because many women, through surgical reasons or through maybe chemotherapy or radiation, it has sent them into that state.
Yeah.
Now, as a woman, how do you navigate that and balance that? Right?
Yeah.
In terms of your mental health, we look at some of the things you can do to build routines in your life to create that mental space so you perform better, whether it's as an entrepreneur or as an employee.
Yeah.
And what about emotional health? Ladies, and SHEILA, you said something really poignant, and you spoke about, well, we don't have time. I hear you, ladies, I really do, because as women, we are doing so much at home, and yet still we have so much at work to do.
Yeah.
But are you setting clear boundaries? What are your boundaries so that you ensure you get enough time for you?
Exactly.
And those are some of the things we cover in that space.
Wow. I like that. I like that. Good. Can we do a few points more, like 2 more points? And then anybody who wants to know more can go and check it up on your website for the sake of time. Yeah.
Would you like me to cover the last life force?
Yeah,
and then
please.
We can close that off?
Yeah.
Okay, so the last life force is status. And in there, the three buckets that we look at your profession. So how can you navigate that space successfully? How do you deal with a difficult boss? How you deal with a narcissistic boss? Yeah. And then we look at your finances, not in a heavy way, but what can you do? How can you monitor your finances to ensure that things don't slip through the cracks?
Yeah.
And then finally, your future. How do you identify your life vision? And in there, we have something called finding your ikigai, which helps you identify your life's purpose.
Okay.
So in totality, it really is a holistic approach to helping those level up.
My God, I like all of that, and I'll be very excited if we can all visit your website or get in touch and get to know more about all these 9. Yeah, I like to see women excel. I like to see women take positions in life and help inspire other women to come up. So if we can all do, make a trip to your website, get in touch with you, and then get to better our lives, I think it will be a good thing to do. In wrapping up, what will your final message be to our listeners?
I would say to everyone, regardless of where you are, start where you are. Use what you have and do the best that you can to keep going forward in your life. The steps do not have to be grand to be great. Consistency is what counts, but just start. Do not let anyone sabotage your dreams, and if your dreams are worth it for you, just simply start. You know your why, keep steadfast to that, and don't let anyone dissuade you from it.
I like that. You know your why. Keep steadfast to that. I like that very much. We would like to say a massive thank you, Liz, for coming on Podcast with SHEILA today.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Wow. If you've been listening in, this is season 2, episode 66 of our podcast series, where we've been bringing seasoned guests with inspiring real life stories to share with us. Do not miss out on all these lovely experiences. Subscribe and be notified when a new episode is released. We have a video presentation of this episode on our YouTube channel. Just search for Podcast with SHEILA on YouTube and you'll find us. Our prayer for you this week is that the Lord will bless your basket and your kneading trough. May you never lack or want. Until we meet again, have a